to do something really, really great, you need help. We got to have help. I mean, my observation, I don't know about your observation, but my observation growing up has been that the lone wolf has a nice life, self-sufficient, doesn't have boards. They're boards because the government makes him have boards, but the boards consist of people he picks and knows that are usually related. Usually uses in-laws because they're related, but it's less offensive because the name isn't the same. And there aren't stockholders, there aren't committees to decide things. It moves so fast, a lone wolf can just, boom, can just zip in and out, make decisions, move fast. You know, when you're dealing with a lone wolf and you come up with a good idea and you say, but how could we get this done? He can look you in the eye and say, it's done. If I say it's going to happen, it's happened. We'll do this thing. We can do this, wrap this thing up in 8 days. This is the lone wolf. There are things you can accomplish when you're not dragging along hundreds of people behind you that could never be accomplished any other way. But to do something really great, you need help. I remember a quote from J. Paul Getty that's kind of stayed with me. He said, this was in the sunset years of his life. He said if he had his life to live over again, he would spend more time doing big things than small things because it takes just about the same amount of time to do a big thing as a small thing. And then he said something that took it beyond me, that I couldn't really understand. He said, preferably, I would work on those projects that take more than one lifetime to achieve. Well, we're wanting to do something big. You know, I've traveled in these presidential campaigns. It's $1 trillion industry, politics. I mean, regardless of the limits or the numbers you see posted that people spend, the labor, the thousands of people that work as we travel from city to city to see what one precinct committee person does in a year or 2 years in the middle of a political campaign, to get someone elected president of the United States. It takes thousands of people to do that. You need help. When I fly into some beautiful city, Hong Kong's is a city you never forget when you fly into, because the planes, you know, bring you right between the skyscrapers and land you right in the heart of the city. But when you fly over any modern city today, Kuala Lumpur, so beautiful, it's like a jewel box laid out there at night. So pretty, the buildings, the skyscrapers all lit. How do they build a skyscraper? Do you know that there are only 5 or 6 skyscrapers in the world that are owned by individuals? And those become very famous. We all, of course, we knew the Rockefeller Center that was built by an individual, but very quickly, within one generation, it's owned by 30 or 40 people, and then the next generation, hundreds and thousands of people. We know that what was it in Chicago? Was it the Merchandise Mart that Joe Kennedy owned? There was a building that was owned by an individual. But most skyscrapers, almost all the skyscrapers in the world, are owned by thousands of people. They couldn't be built by a lone wolf. We would not have modern civilization if it depended on a lone wolf. I mean, most skyscrapers are built in ballrooms like this, and they bring out beautiful pictures of what it will look like, and we're a real estate company, or maybe we're 3 real estate companies that have competed bitterly against each other, and now we're united. And it's a strange feeling to look around the room and see some of our competitors and rivals, and we're all sitting at the same tables, and here's this skyscraper, and we start talking about what it will look like and what it will be, and then we get up and we divide it up. We say, you know, let me tell you something. Our accountants have sat down and worked this out. If all we did was move our clients from where they are now into this building, we could fill the 3 floors that we have pledged for. And everybody cheers and they screams. Of course, we can't do that. Some of these people are locked into 18-year contracts and 12-year contracts. Some location is very critical for some of these, in spite of the fact this is a prime location for most people. There are some who prefer where they are for their own reasons. But can we fill these 3 floors? And the real estate agents shout back, yes! And then then they divide it up into little pieces, and each person has their part. And in another ballroom somewhere else, a bigger ballroom with thousands of people, a company is meeting. And the board of directors meeting, and the president is making his presentation, and he's got a whole staff backstage that have worked for him, that have prepared him. And then they show these slides, and here's the picture of the building, and we're taking 7 floors of this building, and everybody cheers and shouts, and they describe this building and the history of the buildings in the vicinity and the location and when they were built and the names of great people, the Mellons and the Rockefellers and other people nearby, as they take on another 7 floors. Usually several banks, many banks are involved. A bank for this floor and this group, a bank for this floor. And somewhere, in some ballroom they're meeting, and they've paid a premium, and they show a picture, and on the top they have their name, and they say, and this will be the 3% building. And everybody screams and they cheers. It's going to be named after us because we've taken 4 of the most prestigious floors and we've committed the money, and the building will be named. That's how a skyscraper is built. It takes thousands of people to build the pyramids, to do something really great. If you want to do something really great, you need help. I know that costs. It's tough to have boards of directors and stockholders and committees and partners and alliances, people you got to get their permission. It can slow you down. It can constrict. But we're talking about something big, really big. If you're Islamic, let me share with you, because I go to many Islamic countries and speak in many Islamic countries. There is a concept in Judeo-Christian cultures that are Judeo-Christian, and America was. Now the Muslim influence in the United States is increasing rapidly, and America is the melting pot of the world, and as more Muslims come to the country and more people practice the Muslim faith, we will benefit from marvelous ideas in their culture. And there are so many that are similar. For example, there's a wonderful verse that's in the Bible that's held sacred by Jews, by Christians, and by Muslims. And it says the exact same thing in the Quran as it does in the Old Testament. It says, a live dog is better than a dead lion. It's a principle that where there's life, there's hope. You'll find it in Buddhism. But here's a concept that has some unique roots in the Jewish religion, and then because the Christian religion came out of the Jewish religion, in the Christian religion. And here it is. Listen to it from Ecclesiastes. If one will put 1,000 to flight, 2 will put 10,000 to flight, and a triple braided cord cannot be broken. That's found in Ecclesiastes. Now, I don't know about you, but I've found that if one can put 1,000 to flight, he doesn't think he needs anybody else. Because he's so good. He's so talented. Why should he compromise what he does so well? Who does he need? He can take 1,000 people down. It's very hard to imagine in modern warfare how someone could handle 1,000, outside of James Bond or Batman. It's pretty far-fetched to imagine. But in ancient warfare, I guess, when a lot depended on muscle and stamina and speed, one could put 1,000 to flight. 2, listen to this, 2 do not put 2,000 to flight. They put 10,000 to flight. And I'll tell you another thing I've observed in life. You will never find 2 who will put 1,000 to flight. You'll find one who will put 1,000 to flight and one who will put 700 to flight. You'll find one who will put 1,200 to flight and one who will put 450 to flight. Or you'll find one who will put 970 to flight and another who will put 812 to flight. That's real close. The point is, when you work with someone else, you almost always feel cheated. If it's perfectly 50-50, you'll still have the sensation that it's 60-40 against you. Even if it were perfect, if some independent arbiter were to say, no, I've crunched the numbers, this is 50-50, you'll still feel like it's 40-60. But listen again to the opportunity here. If you can defeat 1,000 of your enemy by yourself, and you team up with someone else, you'll do 10 times as much. The lesson is team up. Find a partner. But here's one nobody tends to go to. It's hard to go to it. A triple braided cord cannot be broken. This is the power of the three. Now, your partner, it's so critical who your partner is. You've got to be loyal to each other. You've got to have things in common. You've got to trust each other. It is so absolutely critical. You just team up with anybody and it's a disaster. It is so critical that you can't move to 3 just because 3 is better than 2. You can't even team up with 2 just because 2 is better than 1. You have to have the right partner for the project that you're working on. I'm going to share this from the concept of Christianity, which would be controversial, but I hope you will bear with me, because the Christian religion is a great religion and a large religion, the largest in the world, I guess, in terms of adherents. So be patient with me. I'm not trying to convert you to the Christian religion anymore. I was trying to convert you to the Jewish religion. I'm using an example, and it's a shame that our society's become so secularized that I'd have to apologize to you to use something from, and I'm not using it here as this from the spiritual standpoint, but I'm using it. I'm using it from the standpoint of understanding this principle and for you to see how deeply rooted it is in Judeo-Christian culture. It's there. It's why when I start to talk about this today, the light bulbs are going to go off and you're going to feel very comfortable, those of you who have come through and been born into a Jewish Christian culture, because it's there in your subconscious, your instincts. Now listen carefully to the concept, for example, of the Trinity as taught in theology in many Christian denominations. Here's how it works. Jesus, in this scene, is baptized in the River Jordan by John the Baptist. And a voice from heaven says, "This is my beloved Son, whom I'm well pleased." This is God promoting Jesus. The voice of God promoting Jesus. And then a dove descends as a sign of approval from the Holy Spirit. Here are the three at work. Someone comes to Jesus and someone says, "Good Master," and Jesus stops him and he interrupts him. And this has caused theologians to scratch their head for many hundreds and hundreds of years, because Jesus says to him, "Why do you call me good? There is none good but the Father." Now, this is Jesus promoting the Father. Now, the disciples are up on a mountaintop, and suddenly there appears Moses and Elijah, and they're talking with Jesus, and this is called the story of the Mount Transfiguration. And Peter's overwhelmed, and John is with him, and he's overwhelmed, and he says, "This is amazing. Here is Elijah, and here is Moses. They've come back to life, and this one, here are you. We should build 3 tabernacles on this spot to mark this moment in time, what has occurred here, a monument to Moses and a monument to Elijah and a monument to our own very Jesus." And a voice interrupts from heaven to shut down Moses and Elijah and says, "This is and this is God affirming Jesus. Now, here's Jesus with his disciples, and he's talking about the fact, hey, I'm going to leave. In fact, it's going to be pretty messy. He's telling them what's going to happen. The disciples are not wanting to hear this. They don't, this is not positive thinking. So Jesus is struggling to make this a pill they can swallow, and Jesus says, no, this is good. This is good. Because you don't know what you're thinking. You don't understand this. If I don't leave, the Holy Spirit will not be able to come. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen here. This is too good. This is Jesus promoting the Holy Spirit. Now, you can read in the epistles, Paul, who's a great writer in Christian theology, and he defines for the Christian church what the role of the Holy Spirit is. You know what the role of the Holy Spirit is? To remind us of all the things that Jesus had said and to glorify Jesus. This is the Holy Spirit promoting Jesus. Now, what you've got happening here in theology. And thank you, I didn't mean to offend anybody, but thank you for allowing me to discuss openly something that's theological and well known, and all of you understand what I'm talking about and know the stories, whether you're Islamic or Jewish or Christian. Here you see this principle even in the Christian faith of the triple braided cord. Does Jesus need promotion? Apparently. Does God? Apparently. Does the Holy Spirit? Apparently. And they all three are promoting each other. Let me tell you something else. When we were at the White House, we worked in the White House, we brought on senior staff a young writer whose only job was to write letters supporting and defending the White House. One person. That was an eye-opener to me. So she'd write a letter to the mayor of Chicago. She'd write a letter to CBS News. She'd write a letter to the Wall Street Journal. Now, when she finished her letter defending the White House, she didn't mail it. We were a Republican administration, so our group, our big supporter thing is the Eagles. These are people that give so much money a year. She'd get on the phone and call an Eagle in Nebraska. Say, we're having real trouble with the editorial page of the Wall Street Journal. They're off the ranch, and we need your help. I've composed a letter that gives the essence of what our talking points are. You don't have to use this at all. You write your own letter. But this is just to give you an idea of what we're hoping, what we need. I'll send it to you. If you agree with what it says, in intellectual honesty, you can support what it says. We'd sure appreciate you writing something similar for us to the Wall Street Journal to call them on this. This isn't fair. So we'd send the letter to Nebraska, and of course the person in Nebraska just takes the letter, gives it to his secretary, and says, put this on our stationery and mail it to the Wall Street Journal. So the letter comes from Nebraska. The letter to the mayor of Chicago comes from Peoria. And somebody, I tell you how politics works. It's like law and everything else. There's a person that has to make a decision, and then there's a whole bunch of people around him that says not to. That's how it works. So that if the decision works, the principal gets the credit for it, but it wouldn't matter because even if you'd have suggested it, he'd have still got the credit for it, so you lose nothing. But if the idea fails, you're safe because you said so. So it's like law. If you ask a lawyer, the answer is no. So somebody comes running into the office of the mayor of Chicago, huffing, Your Honor, here we go. I'd just like you to see this. You remember the discussion we had, and Bob was saying that yeah, no one would notice, and that if we said and why. I'd just like for you to see this because, you know, we're trying to get the federal money now down there. We've been trying to work with them now that they're in power, and we're going to have to work with them. I'd like you to see what someone in Peoria who doesn't know anything about this has said about your comments. So there they go. Now the letter is written in the White House. Now you may ask the question that I asked, what does a letter do? Don't they get like 30,000 letters a day or a week? Or what does a letter do? And the answer is most of the letters are crap. And most of them are recorded, like at the White House, they record it if they're opposing the use of chimpanzees for experiments at the Baltimore Zoo. It gets a number. But if it's actually written in ink and they spell deer right, it moves into a totally different category. It's true. If it's typed, if there's a letterhead, if it has any logic whatsoever to it, you would be shocked how quick that goes to the desk of the CEO. You'd be shocked. That moves right up through the line. And that's why, to my great surprise, the White House was able to effectively use one single individual to sit at the word processor knocking off letters all day long. Now, why didn't we send him from the White House? We have power. We're the White House. We could make trouble for the mayor of Chicago. And the answer is, you have no credibility in speaking about yourself. You have no power to promote yourself. People try and become laughing stocks in the effort when it's found out. You can't do it. But anybody else can, but you can't. But anybody else can, but you can't. Anybody else can, but you can't. When he gets that letter, the mayor of Chicago, they don't vet it. They don't say, who is this? Who is this person? What's her education? Where did she go to school? Who's this on her letterhead here? Who are these people? Check out these people. Who are they? They could be in prison for all we know. The power, the credibility of that letter, the authority that that letter carries is so strong that it isn't even vetted. Because the authority and the power it carries is simply this. It isn't the White House. Anybody can promote the White House or defend the White House except the White House. Anybody. Because if you're loyal to someone who is less rich, less educated, less talented than you, it works better. Because your group has to be loyal to you. You've demanded that by your example. So, White House can't promote itself. Let me tell you something that Jesus said. Jesus said, this is a Jewish proverb that Jesus quoted. A prophet is without honor in his own land. Now that was an old saying when Jesus said it. That was old, ancient philosophy. You can't promote yourself. Jesus can't. The White House can't. Why are you trying to do this? It won't work. You can't do it. You need someone else. Let me throw in something else that I've struggled with a little bit within the Bush family. The Bush family has had, she's passed away now, a wonderful woman, a brilliant woman. And she'd read Francis Schaeffer and John Stott and all the great writers and thinkers, and a real intellect. And she loved the Proverbs. And one of her favorite verses in the Proverbs, and I interviewed her, but I didn't find out. This may have preceded her. This may have been a favorite verse of her mother or grandmother. But one of the ruling principles within the family was this proverb: let another praise thee and not thee thyself. So when young George, who's now old George, would come home from a tennis game, he could not even say if he won. How did the tennis game go? He'd have to brag on his little brother, who he beat to pieces. Because the principle was, it's impolite to promote yourself. Now, I want to tell you, it's not only impolite, it's ineffective. It doesn't work. So here you are. You need to get something accomplished. You need to close the sale. You need to get the loan. You need to buy the property. You need to have this third party help you. And you're helpless. You can't go in there telling them why it's in their interest to work with you. You need somebody else. You need another person. Two If each can put 1,000 to flight, 2 multiply their power 10 times. 3! So hard to get to 3. But 3 is like 100,000. 3 is powerful. In fact, since I've gone ahead and opened a can of worms, I'll go ahead and give one more. I'll give a spiritual illustration, because Jesus says that the principle works in the supernatural spiritual world. Jesus said, if 2 or 3 people come to agreement on something they want, a contract will be issued for that in heaven. Apparently, he feels that 3 people are not going to commit to a lie as easily as 1 might, or self-deception, or 2. Increases the odds. There'll be integrity in the project. And heaven itself will have confidence if 3 people with 3 different human life experiences can come together. They will have power. We need help. We need help. We need help in our marriage. That's why you go to a counselor, because there's 2. You need a 3rd person who doesn't do much but listen. You talk and she talks, and the 3rd person listens. Now, there's a story in World War II where these 3 guys are prisoners of war, and they're on their way to the camp, and they're talking as fast as they can, and they say, you know, you know what we learned and what we've been trained, that the highest percentage of escape rate is the transit from capture to the camp, and this is about 80% of it right here, and the door closes. We got a 20% shot of escape attempt that might work if we're in the camp, of a successful attempt. So this is it, 80% right now. We got to do something now. And they were 2 generals and a private. Maybe you've heard the story. And one general had rank because of seniority, because of the date line of promotion, and the other one had rank because of his position in the hierarchy and where he was and where he was working in the command center. And they could not agree on an escape plan, and so the generals promoted the private, and the private selected the plan. Because you have to make a decision. Machiavelli taught that. Machiavelli taught something that is kind of scary. Machiavelli taught the decision, making of a decision was sometimes more important than the decision. That's amazing. I mean, you would think you got to be very careful which road you... Well, let me give you the exact illustration. Machiavelli said that in a transition time, support a prince quickly. Because he said, if you select the wrong prince and he does not become the king, the new king will have exaggerated your importance in his mind, because he will have heard the news of your support of his rival. And it will have scared him. And as soon as he is in power, he will quickly co-opt you and bring you to his side, thinking, I never want that guy off the range again. On the other hand, if your prince becomes the king, he will quickly bring you to his side because he can trust you. You were an early supporter. Above all, Machiavelli said, move quickly. Now, you see the opposite in politics. I'm in politics all the time, and you see people just lay back and they wait to support somebody. They wait till the poll. They wait till this primary votes in. They wait. They just, because they want to make the perfect decision. And I'm telling you, I've seen Machiavelli's principle, which is hundreds of years old. I have seen it proven over and over and over and over and over in politics, and it's a very bitter lesson, and everybody on the team hates it. But the worst rival becomes the Secretary of Commerce or the Secretary of Defense, because they made a decision and they moved. 3. How are we going to do that? See, what you got to have is you got to have loyalty. How are you going to get loyalty? How can you trust someone? George Schultz often quotes this old proverb that trust is the coin of the realm. This is everything in building a network. It's everything in building a partnership. It's everything in building a triad. First of all, you dance with the one who brung you, because your reputation is at stake. You cannot command trust if you don't give trust. You cannot command loyalty if you don't give loyalty. Let me tell you how a wise old person taught me. He was a multimillionaire, Bob, and so we would all get these tapes. And you need tapes. You need information. You need a weekend like this. And because if you're running on empty, you can't do anything. And if you're full, it happens automatically. You don't persuade people with logic. If the world were a logical place, men would ride side saddle, not women. The world is not a logical place. Incidentally, I did not say that. You think I said that, but I did not say that. And to prove it to you, when you get the tape, that will not be on the tape. People are not persuaded by logic. And too often in life, we're on empty. We're trying to accomplish something. We're trying to do something. We're empty. That's why it's important to get in a ballroom like this and get overload. Some of you are saying, well, this is overload. I can't take it. I mean, I'm exhausted. I mean, after the second speaker, I didn't hear a thing, and it's just too much, and this needs to be stretched out. No, this is good. This is an overdose. It's being packed into your subconscious, layer upon layer, and deeper, and packed on top of packing on top of packing, and you're going to draw on this for a long time to come, and wonderful things happen from your life. It's why so many people who come back, and they come back because they see the fruits of what happens. And so you can't run on empty. You got to have help. So he would teach me. I'd say, you know, this is odd. Here you are, a multimillionaire, you're very wealthy, and then I buy a tape from you, and you send me a bill for like $8.90 for this tape. This is kind of odd. I mean, you have a secretary that probably cost you $30 to bill me for $8. I mean, well, why don't you just give me the tape? He said, no, it's the principle. He says, I could give you the tape, and then you give your people the tape. You've got 15 people or so, you'll give them all a tape, and then they'll all give their people tape, and everybody's buying 15 tapes. That's not how a network works. Everybody buys one tape. Nobody buys 15, everybody buys one. That's how a network works. That's why I tell you to call me. I don't call you. If I called you once a week, and you called your people once a week, everybody's making 15 calls. You make one call. You call me, all of your people call you. That's how a network works. You got to train them. That's very interesting. You know what I learned? I learned something very fascinating about that. It's duplication. It's what we do. It's what our children will do, what we do. Our friends will do what we do. If I act like I'm loyal to the person who recruited me, I'll have 15 people acting like they're loyal to me. If I speak loyalty but don't perform loyalty to the person who recruited me, I'll have 15 people who will speak loyalty and not perform loyalty to me. If I'm loyal to one, 15 people are loyal to me. It's a good deal. It's a good deal. The principle I'm sharing with you is so basic. It is so real. It is so true. It is so part of success. Nobody has to tell me this is how it works. I needed to get insurance. Now, this is a long story because it's not a long story, but it's kind of a short, long story. It's because I always say yes. I just can't say no. So I've learned, I feel sorry for the guy. I look at his shoes. I think, oh, he's probably got kids, and I'll buy it. I mean, Electrolux vacuum cleaner, it doesn't matter, I'd buy. So I thought, well, I've just got to stay away from life insurance guys because I'll buy their insurance. And I got so good at it. I developed such a method using secretaries and I got so good at it, so many years passed that all of a sudden I needed. I mean, in the balance of things, you know, nowadays you got to be really desperate if you need life insurance. It actually happened to me. I got that far out of balance that any ordinary person looking at it and say, my God, you need to, you know, balance this thing within a policy. I was actually going to look for a life insurance salesman. So it was, whoa, what an experience. So I had my secretary research it, and she researched it, and she found through John, you know, John is this great, had a company that did $300 million in sales
annually in France, and he'd done all these great things, and he had a big company here in the United States, and his comptroller had worked as the comptroller for the Carnation Company, a Fortune 500 company. And so I thought, well, this will be great. This guy will, and he said, yes, I know the best insurance salesman. I lived in Phoenix at the time, in Scottsdale, in Phoenix. He made Charles Barkley wealthy. This man is not just an insurance salesman. He is an advisor, and he's low-key, and he won't put any pressure on you. And so I had my secretary call him and say, we heard about you from, can we get in, sort of thing. And here's the deal. This is what we're looking for. He just wants the most insurance for the least amount of money, because he just wants it for this. He's not looking for, he's not done. So now, I know that nobody knows insurance in this day and age. It's stupid to talk to an insurance sale. What does an insurance agent know? Nobody understands insurance, because it's tied to this and tied to that and tied to that, and it all depends on this, and who knows. So I didn't want some insurance guy to sit there and try to tell me something when I know he doesn't know, I don't know, nobody knows, so let's just sign a policy, okay, and not pretend. Now, I also knew how boring it can get. My eyes glaze over. It's the thing from being a preacher's kid, So, I thought it would boost my morale to have this in a Mexican restaurant, because I love Mexican food, and I thought, I can eat chips while he's doing this thing, and so. And the other thing is, there should be a time limit on it. So we arranged some very important appointment that I had to be at, so that, they understand. So they negotiated, the secretaries, Mr. Wead has to be, yes, we know that. So it's 1 hour. All it is 1 hour in a Mexican restaurant. What could possibly go wrong? So I show up, I drive there, I meet the man who would make Charles Barkley rich, the man who will help me, and he gets out of the car. And he's a man in about his 60s, and he has another young man with him. I could tell they were insurance a mile away. So I thought, oh, who's he? And then a light bulb went off. Oh, the third party. Because that's how all sales works. That's how it works. That's the only way you sell something, really. Third party. You need an out-of-town expert with a briefcase. So, my briefcase is backstage, incidentally. So, we come in, we sit down at the Mexican restaurant, and we introduce, and my agent, the guy I contacted, the guy who came with references, the guy who made Charles Barkley wealthy, the best insurance salesman in Arizona, with references from a Fortune 500 company, he sits down and he starts immediately talking about the young man who's sitting next to him. He goes on and on about this young man. I think, oh, great, and I'm eating, some salsa and chips and all these things about the young. Then he starts pulling out, and he's got Success magazine, and there's the picture of this young man. That is his picture. So he's describing things. I don't remember a thing about it. And then he pulls out a Wall Street Journal. He's going down. He says, now here's a quote. Look at this. And he's talking about, from the Wall Street Journal, about this guy. Now I'm getting intimidated. I'm thinking, this slipped by me. This guy slipped by me. He's obviously very famous. I got to tell my wife about this when I got home that I met this guy. But I had never heard of him before. I must be kind of stupid. I've been this close to Nelson Mandela and Maggie Thatcher and John Majors and Boris Yeltsin and Francois Mitterrand. And Mitterrand was about that height, too. He's just a little bitty guy. And presidents of the United States. And I never heard this guy. I felt like such a dope. I was kind of embarrassed. Now, they bring our food. We're eating our food. He's still talking about this guy. I'm thinking, well, we're running out of time. I wonder if they realize we have 1 hour. So I drop a little hint about my appointment. He keeps on. Now, the guy that he's talking about is just sitting there. He's not doing anything. He's doing nothing. The insurance salesman's doing the work. And I'm doing the listening. Now it's getting late. I'm thinking, God, what do I got to get down and beg? Enough, I'm impressed with this guy. So what? I don't care about this guy. I don't even like this guy. I'd never met him before. I'll never see him again the rest of my life. He means nothing to my life. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for you that you know him. Where are you going? What is the point? I wanted insurance. Now, It's done. They're bringing the bill. I'm thinking, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. What is this, some trick to have a second appointment? And the old man, my insurance salesman, who had done all the work, who hadn't stopped talking from the time we sat down, whose food was cold, got up and had to go to the bathroom. So it was just me and God. And this guy's sitting there. He hadn't said anything, you know. It was real quiet. I thought, I'm not going to say anything. He said, you know, Mr. Wead, I have learned a few things about insurance in the last few years, and life's been good, and I'm grateful for that. Just want to say, of all the policies I've seen, I don't think any provide more coverage for less money premium than the one you suggested to the secretary when you called. I mean, I had chills go down my spine. I thought, you know, it was this way with bowling, too. The first time I went bowling, I got a strike. I mean, the best game I ever bowled was my first game. It was like that with golf. I was great. My first year at golf, I was great. I've gotten worse every year since then. I mean, it's just instinct. I mean, it's not that I researched insurance or anything, that I'm brilliant or anything. It's just, I think, I don't know if it's luck or first instinct, but I felt very good. If you got it, you got it. I mean, I'm not into the insurance thing. I'm an outsider. Maybe that's why I was so good at what I did, at picking the right one. I picked the right one, and I hadn't even studied it. This guy is in Success Magazine. He's been quoted in the Wall Street Journal. This is a very famous person here who's made a fortune. The guy who made Charles Barkley rich is in awe of this guy. We walked out to the parking lot. They were going to their cars. I was going to my car. I thought, oh, great. They're going to make me beg. I'm going to have to go over and beg them for an insurance policy. This is awful. I thought, what a waste. I don't want to waste my day. I don't want to have another one. So I walked over to their car. I said, well, can I get that policy? And they looked at each other. I didn't bring anything. Did you bring anything? No, I didn't bring anything. I didn't. Well, I've got the such and such a thing. Well, he could do that if you wanted. Do you want that now? I said, no. So they got out something, and we signed a substitute something thing because they didn't have their thing. And I went home, and I realized, of course, there's masters at work. It's the third-party principle. You need somebody else. I don't care how good you are. I don't care if you're the best. I don't care if you made Charles Barkley rich. I don't care if the comptroller for the Carnation Company recommends you. You need to run through the office and grab anybody that isn't you and say, come on, I'll give you $100 if you have lunch with me. Because you can't promote yourself. You need help. And you will find a marvelous thing beginning to occur the deeper you get into it. And what you will find is the secret to your wealth is going to be somebody sitting on a row with you, or 2 rows up or 3 rows back that you never knew before in your life, who may not look as good as you or be as smart as you or have your education or may have more or may have less, or may have more money or less money, and they may end up being the key to your success. Stay loyal and watch for partners to build this thing. One will put 1,000 to flight. 2 will put 10,000 to flight. And a triple braided cord cannot be broken. Thank you.